He goes, Rob, if you can start it, you can ride it. He goes, put my helmet on. And I went over there, 12 years old. I started it and took off and rode a Husky automatic at 12 years old. I'd been at high torque, which is motocross action and dirt bike as you guys know it. And
did you buy anything at Meekum?
You think my wife's going to hear this? I don't think she will.
Probably not. Okay, I started the show early, or I cut the intro early because it's my show and I can do whatever I want. Welcome to Tech Talk Taco Tuesday. This is episode number 279. I'm pretty sure. I think so because I'm 2 episodes behind on editing them, getting them together. But my name is Jimmy Lewis. This is the show where we talk about motorcycle and motorcycle-related products. And sometimes we have guests. And tonight I've got a really awesome guest, a guy I've known forever, a guy I used to race against, a guy who worked in the motorcycle business for a long, long time. I want to get into that with him tonight. None other than Robb Mesecher. And I'm going to bring him on here. We'll see how my thing works here. Robb, welcome to Tech Talk Taco Tuesday.
Hey, Jimmy. Thanks for having me on, bud.
Coming in live from Idaho.
Yep. Star, Idaho, about 700 miles away from you.
Yeah, you are one of the smart people that transplanted out of California. Actually, you're one of the smart people that got out of the motorcycle editorial business at just about the right time, don't you think?
Man, Jimmy, it was kind of the time to change my career path a little bit. And I'd been at High Torque, which is motocross action and dirt bike as you guys know it. And then we had a couple bicycle magazines, mountain bike action, road bike action. We had ATV books, dirt wheels, and 3 and 4 wheel action, as you know. We had a wicked great time, and just amazing group of people. But it did start to change, a little bit. And if we want to, drill back a ways, it was probably about 2017. I asked Roland Hines if he would mind if I snuck out and moved up to Idaho, and he was super cool with it. And that was kind of unheard of. And I came up here and I dug it and still dig everything about, to this day, still dig everything about the motorcycle industry. But I'd been at High Torque. I left in 2022 and it had been 36 years. So
yeah. So we were like competitors technically. I mean, you were on the ad sale side. I was more on the editorial side, and I was for now I have to remember how many years, like 12, was it 8 years I was dirt rider, or 12 years I was dirt rider? Maybe 8 years. Something like that. I was dirt rider, and then for 11 years before that, cycle world.
Mm-hmm.
So I, almost as long. I took a couple breaks and was doing the. Were you? This is interesting. Were you at dirt bike when did you start at dirt bike?
I started in March of 1986, and
okay.
My brother worked at Colby Honda with Tom Webb, and I knew Tom Webb pretty well. Just a big fan. I'm a 17, 18, 19-year-old kid. I should back up a little bit. I think at 16, I think Paul Clipper took me to an Enduro. I couldn't drive, and Paul Clipper took me to like a District 37 Enduro in his little light blue Ford Courier. So I go back a ways with Clipper and Super Hunky and Tom working there. And I would visit, and Tom lived at the corner in the San Fernando Valley at Roscoe and Woodman. And boy, I'd drive by, and if the lights were on the garage, man, my truck it'd sound like that singer with that song where the lights are on, man, or just my truck just pulled in at Tom's house. You parked on the grass. You've probably been there a time or two in your life. And
never to there.
Oh, really, man? The lights were on, and you'd come in, and you could imagine a snot-nosed kid. Tom's 10 years older than me, and if you were 22, or if you were 32 and a 22-year-old kid's coming in to talk to you about, the race coming up, and he was always doing bitching stuff on his bikes. And, obviously I'm a big Husky fan, but he'd be putting Mako forks on a Husky or doing all sorts of weird stuff. And, his bikes were always just really Trick. Tom had Trick motorcycles, and so
Yeah.
I was always hanging out and mooching stuff. And he helped me. Really, Tom helped me get into the motors. He helped me get it as ad sales job at Dirt Bike when I was 20 years old, and we.
Because did you work at Colby Honda at all?
I did. I worked at Colby
Okay,
Honda,
I
and
remember that part.
my brother and worked with Tom back in the day. And when I was even a snottier nosed kid, we used to go, my dad would take us to the District 37 Hare and Hounds. And we started going back in about 75 when I was 10, and we would ride out to the bomb. We would, go into the middle between loops in the pit, see the guys come in, and then my dad would ask people where the course had finished. We'd ride back, 2 or 3 miles and see the guys come in. But I can remember Mitch Mays, and Larry Rossler, of course, first heroes of mine, and then seeing, Bob Ballantyne and just guys out in the middle of nowhere where they'd, take their hand off the bars at 90 miles an hour and wave to this little kid on his XR 75. It's pretty cool seeing those guys back in the day. That was pretty cool.
I did an internship at Dirt Bike Magazine,
Well,
and I think so. You were there, but it was when Tim and Joe were running. It was after Tom left,
mhm.
and it was Tim and Joe. So, quick, everybody. This is Robb Mesecher. If you're just joining in, we've grown up racing together and worked in the motorcycle editorial industry together. And we're kind of going to go. We're going to go back over some pretty cool history. And if you have questions, go ahead and throw them up in the chat, and we'll still answer your tech questions because that's what we do here. I have some reporting to do on the KTM 500 that I pulled apart that is running again now. So kind of to see where our paths collide. I think we were racing. Was I? Yeah, because I'd won some enduro plates by then. So we had started racing district enduros together, and so we were aware of each other. Our fathers were both firemen, so
Yep.
they sort of knew each other. There's kind of the firemen that all knew each other, and then because you were at the magazine, I for sure knew who you were. But I got my kind of start. I was a photo model. I probably pissed you guys off because I was always wearing gear and I was getting paid.
Good.
And I would show up with like Malcolm Smith, 3 different colors, High Point, 2 different colors, my Biaffi helmets and all this stuff. And you guys are always trying to get the editors to, hey, put this Yoko on them.
Right.
Whatever.
Well, you were,
it was.
you were very recognizable. I think with the helmet. The helmet kind of set it off. I mean, a few guys wore MSR. Or Ron was a big MSR guy, Ron Lawson, and it seemed like you would wear that quite a bit. But even now, people will pop up with these photos, and if that helmet, the Biaffi helmet or whatever the helmet you wore, was pretty recognizable to you, but you did kind of look a little bit like Shane Trittler on the bike, from time to time, skinny. But
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was skinny back then.
how many
But, yeah,
how
it
many
was-
years did you test ride for a dirt bike?
I started when it was Fran, Tom,
Really?
and Mike Webb were the editors, and Lance Johnson. You remember Lance
Oh,
and
yeah.
Fran Johnson?
Oh yeah.
So Lance Johnson was like getting into the magazine. He was getting his picture taken. That was back when Jimmy Hawley and Kenny Zart were the main guys at Dirt Bike. And I was just racing my little KX80 at Indian Dunes. So I knew who all these guys were. I was going to the magazine rack every day looking for the magazines to see who these guys were. I knew Lance was getting a chance to be in the magazine. He was a pro at the time, and he was riding at my practice track that I had in my backyard. And so I was like, "Hey, bring the magazine, guys. Let's do a magazine test." And then he'd show up with like a magazine bike that they'd let him borrow for a little while. I'm like, oh. And so the same experience you had going to Tom Webb's garage, I had in kind of run around with the guys that I was running around. So one day, Tom, Fran, and Mike came out to my house to shoot they came out a couple times, but they came out to do a shootout. They're going to do a 125 shootout, and one of the riders didn't show up. And this is a really pivotal day in my entire life, really, is that Fran was like, "Well, can this kid ride?" I mean, yeah, I can ride. He had no idea how much I'd practiced doing what we talked about doing, and I actually done a photo shoot for 3 and 4 wheel action for Hoyt Vandenberg.
Wow, yeah.
Of all people, and Hoyt actually taught me. Hoyt taught me how to photo model. You only have to look good for 1/500th of a second. You don't have to be that rad. You can do whatever you want before and after, but for that, when he pushes that button, it has to be good. And so the story goes, like, Fran's like, "Hey, can you ride?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can ride." And do you have gear? And I ran in my shop and pulled out my my gear, and I think it was ratty. I don't remember if they dressed me up or not, but anyways, we went and did the photo shoot. And they were kind of surprised because I knew what I was doing. I understand that he was just shooting 1 or 2 frames in each shot. You had to be in the right spot. And Mike Webb was riding, myself, I think Lance was riding, and maybe Brand. And ended up being on the cover.
That's cool.
It was kind of a first turn shoot. And this is when Fran was doing stuff that was, he was putting hay bale covers on and setting up just way more than anybody else was ever doing at the time. It wasn't just go out in a dirt field and shoot a berm shot.
Yeah, Fran was definitely ahead of his time, I think. And you can even tell a lot of his work nowadays. The color is so much darker and deeper. He had a real quality about him that in his work, and everybody, I think, if they find their strength and how they shoot photos, and he was really, really good, really good.
Yeah. So there's some guy named Peter Postel. He wants to know if I'm talking to Bob Hanna tonight.
No.
So to roll back and finish that story up, that day, Tom Webb, after we were done, he was like, "So you race a little bit, you know how Tom is." And I'm like, "Yeah, I ride motocross, but I don't really want to do that anymore. I want to ride enduros. I want to go do the ISDE." And he looked at me. You imagine just some snot punk-nosed kid just go, "Yeah, I'm going to go do the ISD." And Tom was all into that. I didn't know really Tom's background that much. I just knew he was a magazine guy. And I just said, "Yeah, I'm going to go do the ISD." And he just looked at me and go, "Sure you are."
Had he done it yet?
He had not.
Okay.
No, he'd won national enduros then, and he'd done the qualifiers, but he'd never gone to. He may have gone as a journalist, but he'd never gone to the 6 days. I don't believe.
Right.
He knew what an asinine comment that was, just coming from some kid that had never really raced off road, just some motocross kid.
Well, it's funny, in how our worlds collide and come back, or people come back around our lives. I'm super close with Billy Fulmer nowadays. And, Billy was the first person in our group, in our age category. Well, I'm 60 now. I think you're a couple years younger than me, maybe 5. I don't know. And Billy was the first person in our group out of the District 37 Desert to go to 6 days. And that was, I thought, was super cool. And I want to say he went about 83 or 84, but the other gent that did it, a couple years before us was Peter as well, Peter Postel. And I think it was just marvelous that, Billy did it on a small 4-stroke, if I'm not mistaken, maybe even a 250.
Yeah, because he did it on an Al Baker bike also.
Yep. And then Peter, I think, went on a 125. He might have gone in 87 a couple years before I went. I went 89, 90 and made it 95. But Peter went and, rode a 125. And you kind of had to pick your class back then because while the West Coast guys were good, I don't think we had the depth of, the Midwest and the East Coast guys. And
no.
But anyways, I work with Billy a bunch, or Billy and I converse weekly, trying to help Dalton Shirey get to the top step on National Hare and Hounds.
Right. So yeah, it was an interesting time because I think I actually read something in cycling. I read about the ISD and I said, trail riding for 6 days and you get to race a motocross at the end. I'm all about it because I kind of quit racing motocross. I was kind of a professional intermediate that just never graduated. And I found this ISD qualifier format race where you didn't have to do timekeeping. I'd done it. What really screwed me up is I went with my buddy Jason Ingersoll out to a family enduro, like a CRC enduro.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have to pay a gate fee. I took my XR200. I got to ride all day long. It was like I burnt every check in that race. I thought I won it. I finished
Right.
like on the third page of the results, but I had a great time. And I came back and I just had a really bad experience going to a CMC Golden State race where I think we did like 3-lap motos and we were there all day long, and I got bad starts, and it was just horrible. And I told my dad, I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And he's like, well,
Yeah.
what are you going to do? And I'm like, I want to ride Enduros. And he knew from some of his fireman friends, like, you can't make a living doing that. And I mean, not that I was ever going to make, maybe there was some small chance that I could have done it racing motocross. And it was just that kind of, but you're just a punk kid that just says, I'm going to go, tell me I can't do something. That's probably that's why I'm doing a podcast right now, Rob, is because somebody said I couldn't.
Right. Well, it's
So,
kind of,
hey, also, I'm just going to help you here. Roger Hurd is in the chat. Remember Roger?
Right on.
His says one of his regrets is not going to 6 days. His dad went 3 times. And
it's a hot topic for me. The whole 6-day thing. I'm a huge proponent of it. My son right now, Mitchell, super solid rider, really has the quality and the skills, but to get close, but yet he doesn't quite have the desire to go beat down the events for 2 or 3 years to make it on the team. And it took me 3 years. I don't know how many years it took you.
2.
You might have been smarter riding the 125 and your size.
Well, I was gonna go, and I blew my bike up on the first day of Idaho 4-day qualifier. And if you didn't finish the first day, you couldn't go. I was running with Aaron Huff, and I mean, really close at the time.
Yeah.
And he was on the junior or the trophy team at the time, and I'm like, I should have gone, but you blow your bike up, you don't get to go.
Now that Idaho City's about 45 minutes from here. Mitchell rides there every Monday night. They go at 5 and they get back. They ride into dark, but he's ridden like the last 5 days in a row, and he rides a ton. He was been training with Clayton Gerstner, who made it this year. He got kind of the last spot, but he also had his disc brake pads fall off on the first day. But he rode the one qualifier. But he's actually made it a bunch of years, but this is the first year he's going, and he's riding. He's a beta supported rider up here. Works at Intex. Super great guy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, super cool. Mitchell rides with him, and like we've been out doing practice track stuff, and on a 2-lap, like a mile and a half, they're within a second of each other. So Mitchell's got the tools. He's just got to take the wrappers off and learn how to use them a little bit. So
right. I mean, Rob sent me a bunch of photos, so I'm scrolling them up on the screen as we kind of keep talking, because as you know, Tech Talk Taco Tuesday is a podcast as well. So a lot of times if you're listening to this, you're not going to get to see these awesome photos that Rob sent. Hopefully they're going to kind of scroll around. I don't know where your video just went, Rob, but don't worry about it.
Somebody tried to call in, talk to me. Forget it.
It's yeah, it should. I don't know. I don't know why the thing is, the one is stuck there, but welcome to my world.
It looks like we're looking at horses or something now.
I'll try to fix it. Actually, there are pictures from Mike Young that's actually behind there. So but anyways, this show is also brought to you by Yamaha. Here's where I do. So you'd be proud of me. I do ad reads, but they're completely just normal. Rob rides a Husky, but if you were smart, you'd ride a Yamaha like I do. That's the Yamaha has the best 4-stroke tuning app in the business, the Power Tuner app. And if you like simple 2-strokes, they've got those too. And I'm a big fan of the Tenere. In fact, if you want to buy any of my KTM Adventure bikes, they're for sale right now because I love my Tenere. So if you want a 1090, 1190 with the small wheels, I got it. I even have a 390 that's set up really well. I just put it on the marketplace. Oh, and one other thing, Rooster Endo, brought to you by Taco Moto. That's tacomoto.co. is not happening tonight, because if you would have sent your entry in for Rooster Endo, you would have won, because I got 0. So there we go. So all the guys that were bummed that they didn't win last time, you could have won. It would have been the only one in there. So yeah, we do a section on this show called Rooster Ender, where you send a picture of your bike, and then we put it up on the screen and we talk about it. You tell us about your modifications, and then we tell you whether your bike roosts or endos. And the one that brings us the most enjoyment gets a $100 gift certificate from Takomoto. I'd like to thank my other sponsors that are rolling up on the screen behind me. Of course, Scott Goggles, Bulletproof Designs, DDC Chain Wheels, lots of them. Climb. I didn't wear climb today. That's a weird day. I didn't ride today. And yeah, that was a mega endo for everybody that didn't get that. So Rob, back to so 6 days. When
So
did you go? You went in '89, right?
I did. I went in '89, and you know, I want to. You're asking me something, but I'm going to turn this around a little bit. So you went in '89, if I remember
Mm-hmm.
correct, and
Yep.
I remember I think you rented a 125 KTM.
Nope, that was 90. That was 91.
Oh, was it? What year?
92, 91. Yeah,
What
90.
year didn't you get third overall in the 125 class?
I got second in the 254 stroke class in Germany in '89.
Wow.
So my first year, I got second place on an XR 250 racing against 350s. But you remember that 6 days? It was easy.
Yeah.
It was all special test, and the good thing is the terrain tests were downhill. They were you dropped off the top of a mountain. The one we went uphill, it cost me a lot.
Right, the jump. I remember that. Yeah,
but
you got a picture of that jump somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, the ones we went downhill, I could haul ass in those things, and yeah, did pretty good. I was Al Baker's little factory rider, and I wish Al would have been able to stick around a little bit longer because that guy had big plans, and he kind of knew how to make money doing motorcycle stuff.
I've got jerseys and T-shirts over here from him that would just blow your mind. But he was one of the very first people very close to us. When I was in 1976, Jim Felt worked with Al Baker, and my dad bought me an MR 175, one of the worst motorcycles ever made. And Al Baker and Jim Felt made the rocket ship kit for that bike, which is an airbox carburetor and a little bit of valve work or something. And they did that. My bike was the mule that they used. And we ended up growing up around Al forever. And he was obviously worked in Van Nuys when he had his shop there. But yeah, we were super close. He'd come to the house a bunch and stuff. That was cool.
I think your dad was actually sitting at the table. Because I was just a freelance. I'll do whatever to ride motorcycles. I went down to Tecate for a Dirt Rider magazine 250 off-road comparison or something. I don't remember who invited me down there. It might have been Carl or might have been Mark Correa. I'm not sure. And they went down to Tecate and they had a little loop and we rode all the different bikes. And Al was down there because he had an XR 280 that he threw into the competition. And I was fastest on the KDX 200 and the XR 250, like substantially faster than like the KTM 250 at the time. The Husky had a 250. And I remember me and my dad were just kind of sitting there at the thing having dinner, and I'm pretty sure it was your dad. No, you know what? It was Billy Fulmer's dad. It was Bill Sr. and Al Baker kind of came over because they were buddies. And they sat down and Al, I didn't know who he was, And Al goes, "Hey, what's wrong with you?" That's the way he started the conversation. And I'm like, what? He goes, "How can you be so fast on that stupid little 4-stroke and that play bike?" And I'm like, "They're easy to ride. I can make them haul ass." And I kind of struggle with the other bikes, but those bikes I can get them to turn and they don't go too fast, and so I can really concentrate on where I'm going. And he goes, "Do you think you could ride the?" Do you think you could ride it faster? I go, if I got used to it. And I told him, I go, well, I'm really good on that Honda because I have an XR 200 at home. And I had one of the RFVC 4-valve 200s. And I'd ridden and I kind of knew how they handled and whatever. And he goes, and then he just listened to me tell him that I can ride those things. And he goes, what would you think about racing one of those at the 6 days? And I was kind of like, yeah, it's my dream right now, to figure out how to do it. I was racing a YZ125 in the desert and at the qualifiers, but I wasn't really sure how I was going to get over there. And he goes, I can get you a bike and help you go over and do that stuff if you really think you can do it. And he's like, there's a qualifier in a couple weeks. You can take this bike from this test and race it. I'm like, huh? So that was my introduction to Al, and yeah, it was he had this plan because he had XRs only, but he was going to build this company called Cross Countries Only before there was ever like a KTM XC or anything like that. He had the forethought to build these to take, he was making XRs into race bikes, but he wanted to take race bikes and turn them into cross country bikes, and which was pretty cool. And he'd moved up to Flagstaff and all that stuff and had the shop with the multi-line dealership, and it was ready to go. And then he wasn't very good at flying a plane. Uh-oh, I think we lost your volume. Let's see here. Where's Robb's sound? I don't think I muted you. I go ahead and talk there again. Let me see. You can't unmute someone else. You may be muted. You might have to push.
Wonder why. Okay, there we go.
There you go.
I wonder why that's weird. I didn't touch anything.
The AIs are doing it.
Yeah, no, Al was amazing. It was an amazing guy. And he, even his delivery was just unique. And, he would think a lot and just, it was just a different gent. Interesting guy. I think Dave Osterman, has probably spent a tremendous amount of time with Al. And of course, Johnny, he mentored Johnny O'Mara.
Right.
And, there's a group of people that knew him super well. And it's interesting because I was pretty young, so I would have been 12 or 13. So I wasn't in, any of that circle of the fun and I'm sure the debauchery that was going on. But I've heard some stories,
It's crazy. It's like Roger Hurd's in the chat. Roger worked at Al's shop.
Right.
Yeah, he was there when I was coming by to pick up those bikes and stuff at the time.
Yeah, he would know a ton more.
Small world. Yeah,
a ton of stories. It was interesting. One of the first vintage motorcycle races we did out at Edwards Air Force Base, which wasn't far from Hellendale, where Al lived. And there was a guy that brought out some XRs, frames and chassis and rolling things that had Hondas that had monoshocks and that were these weird prototype bikes that had been built. And I know they had to be Al's. Then they were probably stolen or swiped or something, but I should have grabbed them, but it were just some amazing things. But I think it's interesting to point out that, even Peter, if he's listening, or Roger, but, Al was kind of the predecessor to Bruce Ogilvy. And
right.
So, Al kind of worked on the XRs, and, Big Red was that famous bike and poster in Dirt Bike Magazine with the checkered helmet. Al kind of helped develop that bike. And then I think that, when Bruce kind of came along and grabbed the reins and made, probably 600 Hondas and the rest is kind of history. But one real funny story with Al, like I said, we grew up and we went out to his house and he lived in Apple Valley. And I remember it was 1979 because he had a green automatic Husky. Al did work at Dirt Bike Magazine. He was a contributor, and he had the green small tank CR motocross automatic Husky. And the first time anybody's seen one, where they just hit the market, and I was at his house with my dad. We'd probably come back from a race or something and stopped in and visited with Al. And I don't know what it was because I didn't have a helmet, and his helmet was sitting there, and he goes, Robb, if you can start it, you can ride it. He goes, put my helmet on. And I went over there, 12 years old. I started it and took off and rode a Husky automatic at 12 years old. I had no idea, but I'll remember as I was wearing Al Baker's helmet, and that, it's so funny, you jog those memories
that's how I very first got to ride a big bike was, 2 times it worked for me. It was my dad's XR200. We went trail riding at Gorman, and him and his buddy were sitting on the tailgate of the truck, and I was on my little XR80, and I wanted to do it. And he goes, if you can start it, you can ride it. Well, I started it, and both times, and the other one was a YZ 490 that a kid named Eric Hilton, his dad was racing.
Sure.
And he said, if you can start, I started those things. And the minute I started them, I don't think the YZ had the kickstand, but I know the XR had the kickstand. I just cranked it in gear and took off, so the kickstand would pop up. And I don't know how because once I got that bike started, I had to leave because they were never thought I was going to start it, and my legs weren't long enough to touch the ground.
So who taught you how to ride Enduros?
The timekeeping part?
Yeah.
Kind of self-taught, really. So this is this story that Peter who's in the chat will kind of remember because he also brought it up. I went and did, so I did the enduro, the family enduro. It was a CRC or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went out with Jason Ingersoll, and I was way faster than him, but he almost won it, and I was on the third page of the results. I'm like, well, what the hell? How does that work? He goes, it's an enduro. You're supposed to go a certain speed. And I go, yeah, people were riding really slow. I didn't understand. And so he knew how to time keep. He had a Jerry Counts, like a roll chart holder with the clock in it.
Mm-hmm.
He had this kind of crazy thing. But of course he didn't he signed up on an early minute. Since I signed up at the race, I was a later minute. I think I was just trying to catch him. I don't know. I didn't know what I was doing, but I think he explained to me kind of a little bit more about timekeeping. And then I went up and did the Leaping Lizard Enduro up at Ballinger Canyon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And because I knew Ballinger Canyon, I go, that's pretty cool. I'd like to go up there and ride. And so went up to Ballinger, and a friend, or I remember somebody kind of actually, it might have been the guy who was putting the race on, actually told me kind of like, okay, here's what you do. It's like every other check you go fast. When you come to a check, and then you go fast, and then and I think that enduro was probably very simple. It was just check in, check out. They really didn't have any tricky timekeeping, and I did pretty good. And then somebody who was there, and it might have been like Robb Bush or someone who was in VCMC, said, hey, you need to join a club. And some of those guys actually told me a little bit about like how to put the roll chart on your handlebar and how to use the watch to figure out your minutes. And I was really at that point kind of self-taught to the point where I knew how to do what you're supposed to do. And I just knew that I just needed to try to keep my odometer and my mileage, or the mileage that the time said, because there was no computer at this time. For me, I was too poor to have a computer. And then I went to the Prospector Enduro at Tokiwas, and I know that you were there, and so was Peter, and so was Grant, and and the reason I went to that one is because they had a 6-day special test at the start. They had like a little grass track right around Tokiwas that they kind of laid out and everything. And it was the fastest time wins this. It was like, so they set it up, but since it was an enduro, it was inside of enduro, there was actually a 36 mile an hour speed limit around this thing. But so you would come late to the first check.
Mm-hmm.
I burnt it.
Wow.
Yeah. I burnt it. And then, but through the course of the whole event, I made the time back up, because I rode down one of the downhills that everybody got off and bulldog down, and managed to zero that. And there was another one that I did. But I remember coming into the finish, and you guys were all standing around. You and Grant, Tom, and Bruce was there, and they're all kind of doing the scorecard comparing, doing the numbers and everything like that. Yeah. And I walked over and handed it to, I don't know. I just walked over. I think I knew who somebody was. I probably knew who Bruce was. I knew who Tom was. And I'm like, hey, how did I do?
I kind of remember this.
The first thing they see is that I burnt the first check, and then they're like, "You're an idiot."
I remember something.
And then they start going down, and they go, "Wait, you zeroed that? No way! You zeroed? Holy sh!" They go, "You won," and I'm like, "Huh?"
That's cool. That's cool.
And then and then Grant's Polanski in the result back to make him win.
Yeah, no, and we still Grant and I talked a lot, and I've got to be honest with all the guys I've raced against. That guy, he's a big sweetheart and keeps in touch a lot. And as you know, maybe some people know, some people don't know. I lost the use of my left eye. I'm 2200 in my left eye, so my left eye doesn't work, and so the last 3 or 4 years have been pretty tough. And Grant, he checks in a lot, and I'm riding dirt bikes and I'm playing golf. I'm doing everything I normally did. Just boy, if I did it at a whatever, if I was at a 10 before, I'm at a 6 now. It's just it's pathetic. It's pathetic. But you know what?
Yeah.
There's a lot of worse things that can happen. But I do recall that my one little claim to fame is that race was one year. It was a national. And I got second overall to Terry Cunningham. It was pretty close. And I think, which is weird, I think he might have been on a 125 too at that event. But I got second to him, and I was a double A. You get the double A status for a couple of years. That was kind of cool.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah, I just didn't even, like I said, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I just knew enough to be dangerous. And then luckily, I was around smart people that kind of herded me in the right direction. That
Well,
gave
that's
me
what I
some.
was wondering if Peter mentored you, or because
Pete,
Peter's super smart about all that stuff. And look now, I mean, fast forward 25 years, and you're teaching people how to read rally books
yeah,
and race into car.
I
That's
and
remarkable.
I, and I really do think back to when I was a kid that like somebody saw some potential there and said, hey, and it's amazing how many kids or young guys I get around, and I'll kind of go, hey, and try to help, and if they want it, great. I was lucky because even though I was a kind of little punk, I I would listen, and this is what, even like with Ricky Braybeck, like I talk to him and he's looking out in outer space and it seems like he's not paying attention. But when he comes back and he's done all the homework, and you know that he put the work in to do it, it was kind of surprising because when he left here, I'm like, that ain't gonna work. The very first time he came and trained here,
Hmm.
and there's a few guys like that, but everybody learns. This is what I've learned from teaching now for so long, is everybody learns differently, and they have different attention spans. And by God, if you're attracted to motorcycles, you're probably not good at sitting in a chair listening to have somebody tell you what to do.
Right, right.
That's not
I
that's not
could
that's not
agree
your
there.
specialty. And I was that kid in school where I wasted my entire education because all I wanted to do was just get the grade and get out of there. I didn't absorb any of the I didn't absorb any of the information. When I was editor of a magazine, I could barely know how to punctuate a freaking sentence. And
Uh-huh.
I'm in charge of this damn magazine. And I just thinking to myself, you're such a dumbass. You need to learn this stuff. And it was like, no, I still rather go riding. I'm still this way. This is why the show's so bad, by the
Well,
way.
it's funny because I remember there was a point in time where Tom had left, and there was a small list of people who we were going to hire at Dirt Bike, and you were very much a part of that topic of discussion for me because there wasn't there wasn't anybody that really came to mind that I wanted to slot in there. Not that it was my decision, but I had had a lot of input and influence
Yeah.
with as we'd all call him, the chief, and you were on that list. Ron was, we ended up getting Ron from Cycle World. That was pretty cool. But Ron was interesting about when Ron came over to Dirt Bike is, Tom is such a, Tom Webb is Tom Webb. I mean, there's
Yeah.
nobody in his era. There was
He
nobody
has
like him.
that. He has what we call editor personality.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just phenomenal. And Ron, Ron's pretty dry, and it's interesting. But one of the things with Ron is that guy is a professional editor. Ron is
Correct.
a genius. He is just sees things from a different perspective, and he is really he's been a great editor for Dirt Bike for all these years. So
And by the way, you're pronouncing his name wrong. It's wrong. It's Ron. Wrong.
yeah,
I joke. So when I didn't have a deal to be able to get bikes or race bikes in ISD, I called every magazine editor I knew, and I didn't know Ron that well, but I called him at Cycle World and said, hey, I'm a kid, I'm racing, I'm going to go do 6 days. And he remembers it. I'm like, I'll do a story for you. I know how to put a period at the end of a sentence, and that's about all, but
Mhm.
I go fast. And, yeah, because it's awesome working with all of, having worked with all the guys. Because when I was interning Super Hunky, Rick Simon was the editor at large at Dirt Bike. And
Mhm.
I'm riding Monkey Butt too. I mean, very slowly, but I'm riding it.
Oh yeah,
And
interesting.
it starts with the editorial meeting. Paul Clippers actually read it, and he tells me I need a lot of editing. But Clippers, again, an editor, real editor. The story starts with me going to my very first editorial meeting, and we went and sat around the big table. And this is at the office in Mission Hills, down at the right underneath the
Hmm.
118 freeway, I guess it is there. And we go in there, we sit down, and I think there was one of the gals was in there, and D West rolls in, and Tim and Joe, and I walk in with Tim and Joe, and we kind of sit down, and and there's a guy over in the corner laying on the bench doing arm presses or something like that. And they kind of get started talking, and Rick isn't there. And well, Roland gets up and walks over. He's like, Tim, Joe, who do we just invite guests to the editorial? Who is this? And like right then Rick walks in, and Rick heard that. And he goes, "Hey, Chief, you don't even know who this guy is. This is Jimmy Lewis." And Rick read off my freaking resume. And I mean, I just had a couple on the desert, like #1 plate or something. But he knew who it was because I was racing against John Rudder.
John Rudder
was his stepson. And I was beating him on his 125, which Rick would just give him endless shit about. So Rick read off my resume and basically said, "This it's an honor to have this kid inside here. He's working for free at your magazine," because Rick was one of the guys who'd talk back to him. He's like, "He's working for free at your magazine. He's doing a good job. I've read his shit. He could be the editor of this thing." and then Rick sat down and we went on with the meeting. And then at the end of the meeting, Roland goes, "Let me know when you're bringing guests in, Tim."
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's how my editorial career started.
How, it's kind of funny. So and I'm sorry to circle back, but 6 days you do super well. And I remember you doing super well on a 125 KTM. I do recall the Honda thing, but the 125 KTM, it seems like you did super well, but it's like a year later or 2 years later, and I, go to a desert hare and hound or something, and all of a sudden you're teaming up with Dan Smith on a big 500 KTM or something. Like,
I never teamed with Dan. I ended up teaming with Danny after Dan kind of retired.
Okay.
So the trajectory of my career was like, I was doing really good on the KTM 125. I wanted to stay on the 125, but Rod wanted me to move up because he couldn't afford me to be on the 125 because I got every win bonus that was possible. And so like, move him up to the 250. Maybe he'll start winning on this thing. And they moved me up, and that was right when KTM started having financial problems. And then I got injured pretty good. I blew my foot up.
Mm-hmm.
And then KTM went bankrupt, and Scott Harden calls and he's like, "Give me back all the bikes, bring all your shit back. You're fired. We're closing down."
Wow.
And I kind of found out at a race, but he told Danny about an hour before me, and Danny went and talked to the Team Green guys, and Danny got a really good deal. I mean, he should have. He was by far and away for the desert stuff. He was the guy. And then when I finally went to, James DeGane and Mark Johnson said, KTM's kind of in there. Like, Jimmy, we have nothing left. They talked to me the year before, but they already had the LR riding the 250. They didn't need another guy. And so that's when I really started looking at, like, I really like riding motorcycles. Racing was just kind of a side effect of it. I mean, I loved racing and winning races, but I was really hard on myself when I didn't do well. And every time I remember like wanting to win an ISD qualifier so bad and I wanted to go to Europe and race, and there was no interest of anybody here to have an American go over there. But it was this kind of desire to win, and I couldn't do it. And I took crazy chances, and it didn't help. I actually went slower. And I'm like, I don't want to get hurt. I want to go riding on Monday after this race. And I'm like, if I'm a magazine guy, maybe I can just go riding all the time. And so I found how to be a factory rider for everybody. And just so happened that Ron Greiwe, who I was doing a lot of work for at Cycle World, had bought part of ATK. Him and Frank White had bought ATK. Ron, I was walking a bomb run up in Utah someplace and bumped into Ron, and he told, he's like, "Hey, you want a job?" And I'm like, I don't know. He goes, "Go to Cycle World on Monday. Go walk in and tell Dave that you want my job."
Wow.
And because he was going to retire or quit, whatever he did. And I got a job for $24,000 being the shop boy at Cycle World magazine.
Wow.
That's how it all. That was when I got a real paycheck. Not a real paycheck because I was making like double the money. Photo modeling in Cycle World and dirt bike. And Carl told me at one point, I had to make a decision between the Dirt Rider and all the other books. Because I just show up at their photo shoots. I'm like, "Hey, I'll ride anything. Here's my gear."
Right. That's cool.
I'll make a picture. And Jerry Bernardo wants to know, does the other guy talk? The other guy is Robb Mesecher, who is he's a lifelong friend as far as the motorcycle racing goes. Was a competitor. He was the ad sales guy over at Dirt Bike Magazine. I'm going to let him talk because I want to ask him about I don't know where this affection of Huskies came from.
Well, that it is pretty funny. It's if you know me, I've kind of got an addictive personality for sports. Everything motorcycle my whole life. Then everything golf for 10 years, and then everything for race bicycles for 20 years. And after doing all that, or 15 years for bicycles, it was kind of funny. I go, man, I really dig those Huskies. And it was funny. I was watching Mecum auction on TV, and like an 82 Husky went through, and it went for like $800. And I go, man, I'd like to have one of those. I had an 82 XC, and I went and found one later and restored one, restored two. Before you know it, I've got a big collection of Huskies. And I think that we can all agree that, I hope we can all agree that we really appreciated, the Cunningham, Melton, I should back up, Burleson, Cunningham, Melton, TC, just Kevin Hines, Randy Hawkins, all those guys, Scott Harden, just all the guys that made Husky what it was back in the late 70s and 80s. And I just dig the bikes. It's kind of fun how they're all differently, uniquely different looking bikes. And God, before you know it, I've got as my wife would tell me, too many. But so I like restoring them, and they're
how many motorcycles does your wife have?
She has, I think, about 40. I got about 40 Huskies in there.
Yeah, I got you beat, but I'll
Good.
tell you what, my wife, I always like to tell her that we have I'm going to try to fix the photos while we're sitting here talking, but we have his and hers motorcycles. We have a nice collection of dirt bikes.
Yeah, so it's it just and it's super cool is a lot of those guys have sent me gear. Mike Melton and Burleson and Cunningham and Kevin, and God, I just got some just amazing pieces of equipment from those guys. And it's just kind of neat. I don't know that I built a shop. I sent you a couple photos, and
I'm working my ass off right now trying to get those photos up on the show.
I
got to
just
delete all of Mike Young's photos off.
I just dig it. Jerry did it. Jerry did some artwork for me, probably about 6 or 7 years ago. RM's Classic Husqvarna Garage, and that was kind of a cool thing, and I dig that. But what we were talking about a little while ago is I kind of have the name in my head, 6 Day Cafe, and this shop has got a little eating area in it, and I've got a bunch of 6 Day helmets from some guys, and I thought, I'm going to try and get a bunch more, and just have kind of a shrine to the 80s Husqvarna, 70s and 80s Husqvarna guys. And I think it was the best time. I was still a kid, but super passionate about, gosh, like all of us. I think we love cycle news, right? Every Wednesday we'd get cycle news and look at it. And that, while on any Sunday was important to us, it was like on every Wednesday when that cycle news came, and you saw the race and saw who won what Enduros back east. And that just, I'd get up and run 5 miles every day because I wanted to go to 6 days. And, and that's, it took me 3 years. And I just thought that's like the biggest accomplishment you could do back when we were, when we were in our 20s and 30s. I thought it was super cool. And, it's a little bit of shame now, just watching the series. Sprint Enduros and how they choose people to, go to 6 days now is there's, one East Coast qualifier, one West Coast qualifier. This year, the West Coast qualifier, that it was, you had to be LOI, letter of intent, is that you were going to go if you make the team. And they only took 8 racers from each side. They took 8 in the East Coast, 8 in the West Coast. Auntie, at KTM, who runs the trophy and junior program. So I guess that's, and it's terrible to say, but I think that's just 8 guys now, right? We don't do 6 and 4. It's 4 and 4. Yep. They dropped the girls team, the ladies team. And then Auntie has,
there was no girls team this year.
No, there's no girls team this year. And then there's and I'll get to that in a sec. And then Auntie has three more picks that he can randomly. He's got three picks, and not to say that he's the guy, but that's like a Zach Osborne. Hey Zach, you want to go? Or
Right.
I heard the phone rang in Hesperia for Dustin Davis. So Dustin didn't go, but he got call on the invite, because I'm sure Auntie's looking at future guys that are capable of being on the junior or trophy team. So I don't know who the third pick was, but so if you do that math, I think, and I don't know that it makes sense, but that's 16, 10, and 3. So that sounds like 29. So I don't know, that doesn't equal 3. So maybe there's another pick somewhere, but that's the process. So two coasts going for 6 sprint or 5 tests a day, maybe 10 tests, and taking 8 guys. That's pretty lean. It'd be tough.
Yeah. I mean, if you really want to go, you've just got to, that's all you got to focus on. I think you would have to say, that's what I want to do. Cause that's a pretty specialized, back East, they have the, they're called the J-Day style races and stuff like that I think are a little more focused on that. And now even our just National Enduro Series is not timekeeping. It's more, it's ISD style format with these long special tests, but they're not the same kind of train and not the same sort of setup. I think you'd almost be better if you wanted to do good at this to go to like a Grand Prix and just ride 3 classes and just treat your first lap like it's your your special test, and then go work on your lines.
Right. And the Lobos, it was the Lobos MC in Oregon here that did it. They did a marvelous, the event was great. The grass track was huge, flat, very European style. They did a wonderful job at it, but they only planned on having 40 riders, and that's all they had. And that's so it wasn't for profit. It was for finding the fastest 8 guys, and the Leighton Smales and Tyler Vore, and the guys that have been going now for a few years. And to back up, maybe another one. And I reached out to Johnny and I'm probably getting in trouble if Auntie hears this, but I reached out to Johnny Campbell and said, hey, I could see Preston being one of those kids, getting the phone call that you don't have to qualify, but we'd like you on the team. But Johnny had mentioned that he's really, he goes, I'll run it by him, and he can, and I just gave Monty's contact just so he'd have it. But he's pretty much focused on Dakar stuff. That was
good, because I forgot to switch. I'm trying to run a show here, Roger. Thank you, though.
What you did in rally stuff, that was pretty remarkable. That was local guy going big time rally. That was pretty unheard of back then. A few people were Scott and Paul and Larry and had done some, but you were before them.
Yeah,
a little
really
bit?
Before. No, well, Scott had done some definitely before me, and it was
but Dakar,
Chuck Stearns.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Chuck Stearns was the only one that had really done Dakar.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted Americans bad, but there's no way we could get any funding to go do it. So I, sold my soul to KTM and to ASO and wrote on the back of a big Cycle World story that I was going to do, and kind of triangulated all the 3 things. And luckily I was really stupid. My first year was really bad, but luckily I had a result where they're like, oh, hey, you're not just crash out like kind of the typical American story. And I might be mistaken. Actually, there's a really good this guy named Kyle McCoy, who's done Dakar a few times now, has a really good chart with all of the Americans and the finishers. I should search that. I could probably search that in my emails here when next time I let you go. There's a Glenn Glitzby who is in the chat that's trying to get your attention. He said he sold you some Enduro bags back in the day. So
okay.
Yeah. And Peter, you remember him?
Boy, you're putting me on the spot.
I know. Hey, people do this to me all the time. It's like, hey, remember me? And I'm like, I hit my head a few times. I'm not that smart.
Yeah.
All right.
So I asked you, before we kind of chatted about this, and we got some of these guys listening. Let me ask you, with what we've seen in motocross, off-road, desert racing, Dakar, who is your number one all-around greatest off-road rider? Who would that person be?
Ooh,
putting you on the spot.
That's
And
That it's funny because this comes up and I think about it all the time, and so I'm really high on the it has to be like it has to more than anything it can't be about the fame, it has to be about the riding ability. And it's funny because all these names go running through my head and stuff, but you know who really, really stands out is Ty Davis. Because he's one of the few that was able to do almost everything, and that's kind of having to go back because there's a couple like Dante Oliveira right now is just blowing my mind, like how amazing that guy is for the fact that he Grand Prix is okay, great, but then I've seen him do crazy stuff at motocross, and then now he's doing the Hare and Hounds and just.
Yeah,
it's like usually you have a couple big bales and stuff, and so he's right now, but there's always Larry Rossler was always amazing.
so
He was able to go back east and do stuff, but Ty actually went back east, did stuff. He had the motocross credentials and did well at motocross, supercross, and kind of did everything. I'm sure if you would have put him on a rally bike, he would have done just fine.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been around this question for a while, and I bring it up a fair amount. And for me, it always was Ty. But the more I thought about it, I think the greatest off-road rider of all time, or motorcycle off-road rider of all time, even motocross, is Danny Laporte.
You know what? I should know because he was my teammate on my Dakar team.
But I mean, motocross. 250 world champion work that he did. Dakar, almost won 6 days.
Yep.
That guy
he was at our buddy Grant couldn't Polanski's results good enough because at that year we would have won the team trophy too.
Now Danny, both of all these guys are dear friends of mine, but I really think Danny Laporte.
What I don't think I can argue with that. Other than the only thing is, well, he's so heavy motocross, he just kind of got dropped into off-road racing, but never, I mean, the rally stuff he kind of took serious. He did Baja. That was it sort of happened. It was kind of like my Baja career.
So when I went to 89 6 day, I lived in Santa Clarita, and he came up and we went out to the desert, and we went out and we tried to do some grass track stuff. And then I had this bitchin' grass track up in Santa Clarita, and we went, and he came up one weekend and we did that. And I remember it's right about that Dalmatian gear. JT was doing that Dalmatian gear, and he had a belt pack. And it was like one of like three. And he goes, hey, I go, oh man, that thing's so cool. He goes, you want it? He goes, I have no use for carrying tools on a motorcycle. I'm riding. He goes, why would I want to carry tools? Because I don't know how to use them if I had to. So, which brings us back to, so then fast forward, a couple months later, we go to Germany for 6 day, and he gets a flat. He wakes up and Saturday morning, and he's got a front flat on his bike. And so you have to ride like 20 miles or whatever. And MJ is going, got to get him in here. And I think Tom was riding chase for Danny that year.
Kind of, yes. Yep.
And Tom's like, Danny's like, I don't know what to do. But he goes, you got to change this. And they didn't want to risk him trying to change the flat. So he flat up raced Stefan Peter Hansel with a front flat, wheel to wheel in the final moto. Yeah, in the final moto. He got Peter Hansel beat him and he won. But I think, Danny, somebody knows he lost by, 10 or 15 seconds for the whole event. But he couldn't change. He was concerned he couldn't change a front tire. In the 10-minute period,
5-10 minute, whatever they had. So I called up that American Dakar Rally finishers. So Chuck Stern was the first American. He ended up finishing 6th place in 1985. Danny Laporte was the second American finisher in 1992. He finished 2nd place. But I completely disqualified Danny's result. Always have, because he did it under a French passport. And he rode through a country, Chad, that we are forbidden to go into. Not that I've ever been to Libya or anything like that.
So if anybody's listening, take Roger Hurd. He's super close to the Kawasaki guys. Who does he think? Who would Roger think is the greatest all-around rider?
This is a great topic for you guys to throw up in the chat. Greatest all-around rider. Throw it up in the chat. So I was the third guy to go in 1997. And then I went in 1996. I did not finish. And then in 1998, Paul Krause went and finished. So he was the fourth rider. And then the fifth participant was Johnny Campbell. Just for interest, he went in 2001, my last year, his first and last year. And then in 2004, Larry Rousler was the sixth American. Krause was there. And then in 2005, Chris Blaze, Scott Harden, and Kellen Welch were the seventh, eighth, and ninth American Dakar finishers. So quite an interesting list. I knew I had that information someplace, and I was able to call it up because thanks, Kyle McCoy, for that information. I'm going to check the chat right now. I know it's in here someplace. See if there's okay, here we go. Grass track equals golf course. Grant Polanski says Dick Burleson is the all-time. Rodney Smith. That's another good one too. Kind of forgot about Rodney.
Rodney's our local, buddy up here. He lives about 10 minutes from here, and we ride with him a bunch. And he is amazing. He is really amazing. But I'm talking, and it's not fair,
But Rodney didn't do any desert, so I'm just going to.
That's what I mean all around. And this isn't fair to like Michael Lafferty. Lafferty, I was kind of pedaling bicycles that time, and while still watching, I mean, he did, what did he do? He did at least 8 national enduro titles, right?
Yep. And so Grant says, Dick Burleson. Kane Smead says Andrew Short. I like Andrew. I don't think he's on the top of this list. Jack McCormick says LR. San Felipe Bob says Danny Hamill. Well, if you're talking about desert racers, Hamill is definitely right up there on the top, if not the top. We probably didn't see what he was completely capable of, but yeah.
I mean,
Bow. that's out there. Okay. Scott Dennison's claiming Ryan Sipes.
Yeah.
That's out.
Viable.
It's so funny because it really depends on, I think, where your focus is, because you're surrounding yourself with people that are more in your disciplines and stuff. But I do kind of go wide. Maybe I'm discounting the motocross side of things a little bit, but
I think
crazy.
that I think to defend the Taylor Roberts. I mean, if he wanted to go do other stuff, he probably had the ability to make that happen as well. And just like you said, a few minutes ago, and spending some time around Dante in the last couple months, that guy, he's amazing. He is.
Yeah.
What he did at Glen Helen is amazing. 2 weeks ago with the National Hare and Hounds, he's been just amazing. I mean,
from having National Hare and Hound experience and knowing how difficult it's like, you can go and plug your brain and you could win a National Hare and Hound if you have motocross skills, for sure. But you're not going to survive more than 2 or 3 races without yarding it.
Yeah.
And he's out there just looking calm and collected and doing quite well. So
and so I don't know who's, I'm sure there's smarter people than us listening here, but I think Taylor's won. I don't know when the last time he's been beaten. It's been 13 or 14 races, going well back into last year. So somebody would know, but it's been a while.
Yeah,
pretty cool for him.
Says Magoo. Peter Postel says Malcolm. I like Malcolm is legendary based on his just the On Any Sunday and just his personality and starting the gear company and stuff. But I think we're focusing more on just riding, and that's where, like an ISD overall win is pretty huge, and so Ryan Sipes is definitely up there. You'd see a little more diversity would be pretty cool, but yeah, that's a good question, Rob. That's one of those stories. That's a Ron Lawson story. Actually, it was a Tom Webb story, but they would always pick the 10 best off-road riders. I think Tom started.
We still do. Yeah, they still do. It's interesting. I talked to Ty, a couple weeks ago, a week ago, and he goes, I think Dante. He goes, that guy. He goes, he might not have a Supercross title, but he goes, I think that guy all around is way better than I ever was. So that's pretty wild. Pretty wild. Just
and Ty is super humble about his riding abilities and stuff like that. I always, I've raced with him a lot, and he was always a really awesome competitor. And when he was on crappy equipment, I could beat him. When he was like on ATKs and stuff. But
Hmm.
when he got on good equipment, and then when they started having him hang around with Larry, he was like a sponge, and that guy got fast really quick. And yeah, crazy.
Yeah, those
Um,
are great times.
so in the so you were at dirt bike, like you said, 30 semi dirt bike and motocross action and
36.
stuff like that. 36 years. Did you focus on all the magazines, or was it?
Yeah, we did. We had four ad guys, essentially. Robert Ricks. Well, Scott Wallenberg was the director. Robert Ricks, Mark Thomas, and myself. And then we had Steve Falk be like the fifth guy for a decade. Then Derek Bernard has been there now. It's funny. It's like I, I've hired. One of the unique things is I've hired like so many people at High Torque, and that is something that I really hold close to my heart. But no, we had a great group of ad guys, and I mean, I was brought in. I was just a young punk selling the ads in the back, and that I got my start from Tom Webb. But just, yeah, so when work got gnarly, when it got good, when the boom of the late '80s, there was a pretty crazy. Yeah, we did go through two or three booms, and there were tough times, but um, all in all, we were just very fortunate to have a good crew, good editors. We had a good product. Uh, Nobody could really dictate, by some people might not believe that, but nobody could really dictate how any of the editorial would come out. Um,
Yeah, this is where I actually want to go down this road with you, because but interesting, because you guys had like so the question was, is did you so you worked across all the magazines, so you would have your clients and you'd be able to sell all the different books.
Yeah, so I'm sorry I didn't answer your question. Probably yes, we
Yeah,
did.
no worries.
I sold 6 to 7 magazines per month. Basically, we work in an office 20 days a month. You had 3 days to basically 7 magazines. You had about 3 days to work on a product on a magazine. Have a deadline where you have the ad sales that had to be sold, ad material collection, magazine going to print, making sure the materials are there. We did that, 7 magazines for 36 years. It was gnarly. Now the blessing is you could sell, you could sell the schedule for the year. We were fortunate to get, to make that happen a fair amount of the time. But like anything, whenever anybody has things going well, you will have competition. You'll have people that want you to have competition. Nobody wants a stronghold or just, Dirt Rider did a wonderful job. Racer X has done a wonderful job. People, they never want to see anybody to get too confident in their product. And so we were
Yeah.
always, it was gnarly. It was very, very interesting times. It
Yeah.
was so good.
To do it into the digital era was that was for me really interesting, because so much stuff changes. It's funny because now with all this AI stuff going on, I think it's kind of the same sort of, there's going to be a big kind of disruption in how everything works and how media works and stuff. But it was so as when I was at Cycle World was pretty church and state with advertising versus editorial. Like there was no real advertising influence on anything, especially with the dirt stuff, because the dirt was so small there. I could do whatever I want with anything I wanted, and there was never any sort of pressure whatsoever. And I was just kind of, because I felt like I should wear different gear every time and spread it out, and it didn't matter. But when I went over to Dirt Rider, then all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, this is a whole different ball game. But in that time I was editor in chief. I was in charge of this stupid thing. And Sean Finley who was the publisher at the time, hired me, and he was like, because I told him, I said, I kind of really enjoy this sort of church and state kind of hands off thing, but I have this work ethics. Like, you help me, I help you. So I'm not going to go find gear companies that aren't in that aren't advertising and put them on the cover and make them with the test riders and things like this. And same thing with if you weren't like, let's just say for instance, if Pro Circuit wasn't advertising, I'm not going to go to Pro Circuit for every single pipe that and then you hear about all the connections between, and we all have friends and buddies in the industry, whether it's me as the editor or you as the ad guy or however it works. And if you think if you thought it was bad back then, and if it was bad or not, like now with the Instafluencers and the whatever it is, and just like, oh, give me this and I'll, say it's great kind of stuff. It's hard to find good, honest reviews. And the good thing is that the nature of everything is that the products and things have all gotten for the most part better and better and better. It's really hard to market your way into a thing that doesn't work. But back then I was really, it was like if we don't tell the truth about this stuff and we don't really test it. And I mean, when guys would bring me stuff, my other editors and stuff would bring me stuff and I'm going, are you sure about this? I would ask questions. And if they can't answer the question, it's not tested. It's not, because if I'm asking this question, somebody in, one of our readers is going to want to know this question. And so we wanted to make Dirt Rider the product testing magazine. And I didn't really care what Motocross Action did, because Jody was so good at doing what he does. And Jody is really good at the entertainment thing. He would know which was the best motocross bike. He would know which one we were going to pick. And he would pick another one. and he would say, we're the only ones that tell you like it really is. And now we're going to show you how to fix it. Bikes down at Pro Circuit, things dialed in, fixed. The next month, the story comes out on how to fix it. And it worked, but I can't compete with that because that's like a whole different game. We just had to, kind of try to test it, at least test and explain to a higher level. And I hated shootouts. I hated giving number rankings to things. My job, I felt, was to describe how it works. Would be let somebody taste the flavor, even though they don't get to taste it, so that they at least know what they're getting into, and then they'll be able to decide whether it's good or bad. It's not for me to tell you that the Husabergs are the best bikes in the world, and that you should love Husabergs, because I like Husabergs, and that way they're the best thing ever. Because this show, by the way, is brought to you by Yamaha, and you can't buy a Husaberg anymore, so that means you should buy a Yamaha. And the good thing is they're both blue, so they're hard to tell apart because they both make a lot of horsepower. So, anyways, back on.
What's interesting is you touched upon about 6 things to talk about there. And I'm not sure which one I'll tackle, but I think I'd like to start with, if advertisers and what we say about advertisers, and obviously this conversation has been going on since the day I walked into High Torque, and the day in '86, and the day I left in 2022. We would always tell it like it was, even to a fault, and we would lose business, and there's times when we lost hundreds of thousands of dollars for and that was but to this day, I guarantee Ron Lawson and Josh Moseman, or even Daryl Eklund at MXA, they ride those bikes, they give their honest opinion, and there's no brand is pressing us for certain content. It's out there. We do hear it's out there. I do hear it's out there to this day. But that never has gone into an outcome of a High Torque test in Motocross Action or Dirt Biker for the other brands, for the other titles as well.
Like I said, I don't think, like I said, Jody had a method and a plan, and he. Like I said, it's not to say that he didn't sometimes pick the best bike, but it was the best bike for them, for what they wanted to do and the way they wanted to tell their stories and explain things. They had a following, and like even when Trans World started coming up, when Don did that, and even when Tom was doing stuff at Dirt Rider, there was times that I'm kind of like looking at it, and it's like I always said, I could throw a shootout just by picking the right test riders. Like I know who's going to like a certain bike in a certain way, but that's my customer is not the advertiser. Although sometimes a publisher would like to tell you that because that's where the money really came from. The customer is your audience, and it's
absolutely.
I need to be able to go tell those guys, and Ron, like I said, Ron, and even when Tom was part of it and stuff like that, they were they've been doing it for a long time, and with Tilly and all these other guys, the grind at dirt bike is gnarly, and
Yeah, well,
I had a bunch.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've gone toe to toe. I'm not going to say never got close to blows, but we've had some heated arguments, over the years about what, how we would, Jody would like to have the editorial have some teeth, just
Yeah.
even,
Well, I do like what Mosman is doing. I mean, I actually like, I've talked to him a bunch of times about stuff, and you can still see where it's still Jody's mag, and he's the heir apparent for sure, and he does a good job. And it's like I said, it's different, but he'll if he learns half the stuff that Jody does, that magazine will continue to do. Motocross Action will stay as a brand. I cannot believe that, like what happened to Dirt Rider, world's largest off-road magazine, and now what is it? An insurance company, or they're selling you leads for automobile insurance? I don't know. But
so maybe, and we could go on that topic forever, but one of the second things you talked about was, okay, if you don't advertise with us, I would always fight to still have that let's say it's a gear brand. Okay, let's say you've got O'Neill and Fox, and I'm just going back to weird years. Shift or Thor, Yoko, whatever.
We lost your. There, you're back.
Yeah, no, so I got 20% left.
I'm joking with Yoko because they made me wear it once, and I sweated, and the coloring on the collars, and it stained my skin.
That's real goat skin.
Yeah,
that's how it worked. They had a hard time finding those pink goats back in those days.
Okay, so go back to the gear company.
So if I were king at High Torque, which I never was, man, I wish I was. If you have 5 gear companies, and let's just say 4 are actively with you every month, double spreads, maybe 2 spreads, a bunch, and the editors would say, hey, go get XYZ in the magazine, and then they'll get coverage. And I'm like, I come from, well, why don't we give them some coverage, and they can see how powerful it is, and then they will be in the magazine. And so that would be the battle of that, let's just say that would be the battle that we would, because you go to let's just say you go to right now, a Michael, let's take Michael Lead. Okay. He has Canvas, right? And now he's launching No Fear. He bought the No Fear brand.
Oh, relaunching.
Yeah. Relaunching No Fear. Okay. Michael, great kid, solid family, probably has good backing. I know that, some things have changed over the years, probably has some decent backing, but he probably can't afford to do, you probably can't afford to have an advertising commitment, like, 6 digit.
Wait, Rob, what about if I come to you and maybe you could print my catalog for me and then insert it in the magazine?
We'd love that. But yeah. So
these are the things I would hear about, and it was like we lost, we'd lose like Thor, and like, well, what happened? Well, like, because we're gonna do something. And they're like, kind of ad guys come over. They're like, yeah, you kind of hold off on the Thor gear, and I'm like, well, why? And they're like, well, they just pulled out. And I'm like, what happened? They're like, High Torque's printing their catalogs. And I'm like, oh, great.
Love when that happened. That was all Robert Rex. But what was interesting is I think you should always throw that guy a bone. Like, it's like if Michael could be, on the cover of the magazine, maybe not the cover, but because you do have to kind of earn that. But I think that if you're getting solid reviews, not reviews, but solid coverage, and and an honest review or decent review of your product, And we would even say like some, you kind of treat somebody. Hey, even Jody would say, hey, the first time a guy brings me something, we test it. We want to support him. We want him to, we want him to do well. But look, we're not going to say great things about this thing if it stinks. And
If right,
but we try to support. I would say, Jody, can you at least give the editorial in a tone that I can at least pick up the phone and call the guy after it comes out? Because we've had some people, Jody, at one point in time, he had the like star ratings, and I was the guy that got the 5-star thing thrown out somehow. I didn't try to, but it got
because if they didn't get a 5-star, they were pissed.
The star rating got thrown out, and then it was whatever they've changed it nowadays. What was I going to say? Just it was. You can see it just gets my blood pumping.
I understand because you're on the other side of it, and I had the same discussions where. But generally, if something was a pile of crap, like the product, somebody said, "Hey, you want to test this?" and generally it came like this: "Hey, they're going to start running. Do you want to test this?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't. We can test it, but that doesn't matter that they're running or not. If even like I said, give them a chance. If somebody brought me some stuff, there's a lot of companies that really got their. They had a good thing. They didn't have a lot of budget. We tested. We put it like a DR tested, and man, they sold a bunch of them, and they're off and running. Now they've got a little bit of budget, and sure, they want to help us. They, you help me, I help you. They want to kind of run with you. So maybe they got a little thing in the back or something to keep it going. But generally, somebody sent me something that was like a turd, and we test it. It's like I don't run to my keyboard. I think there's another. It was usually called Transworld. I think made a guy. I don't remember which guy it was, but they had the sacrificial lamb every month, and you could never find the thing that got the. I don't know if they had. I don't know what their rating system was because I hated ours. If you got an 85 in Dirt Rider, that was like the best product ever. Like to get up in the 90s was amazing, and so people are like pissed because 85 wasn't good enough. They needed to be 95, even though 85 was really good on our scale, and you just remember, you get heat from them for saying all good things about their product, but maybe the cost of it was high. You get what you pay for, and then they'd say, oh, you dinged us 1 point on the cost, and it put us down to 89.
Right. Well, I think what I was going to go back at is we at High Torque, when we would have these battles, we would have an editorial meeting, and sometimes it would be pretty gnarly, and we'd have to go to Roland. And for 36 years when I was there, Roland really supported the ad guy. And he would say to the editors, you guys got to do this. So you got to watch, you got to watch the star ratings. And the one funny story was Frank at O'Neill, dear friend of mine, he got like a 3-star, 3 out of 5 star rating. I go, Frank. I go, that's not that bad. 3 stars. It's like a new chest protector. I know the mold. The mold, he told me, was like $144,000 for the mold. You're gonna love this chest protector. Jody gets it, gives it a 3-star rating. I go,
it's not. Can stop a product in its tracks.
That's what he said. I go, yeah, that's not that bad. I go, it's 3 out of 5. He goes, hey, dumb shit. He goes, let's times both those by 2. I go, okay, 6 out of 10. He goes, 6 out of 10 in school. That's a D. You just got your grade is a D. I'm like, I didn't really want to see it. Like I got 3 out of 5. You're like, you're kind of pushing 2/3 approval, and so I go into Roll and tell them like, hey, we can't do these star ratings. These are really costing. They're going to cost us a lot of money at the end of the year. Blah blah blah. And so then Jody goes, okay, forget it, I won't do it. So he gives them some sort of term, and like a 1-star, the lowest one is now dumpster food. So we have a guy that sends like a shock spanner or something that was like a punch, nowadays I got an 8mm bolt that sets your sag, but it was like some wild, spanner wrench with a ratchet on it or something. And Jody tried it out at the track and the thing didn't work. And he goes, this thing gets our lowest rating, dumpster food. And so Jody would do that just to get back at the ad guys. I think Robert handled that account. And then it was like, that guy would never, he didn't call us. He was out of business in a month, whatever. But
you kind of have to understand that the power that the magazine used to wield back in the day, and the when you are rating these things. And so my method was mostly when something was a kind of like it didn't work, it just plain didn't work or wasn't that good, I would call the company back up and say, hey, I got this thing. I did this. I read the instructions, or I did this. I put this on, and this is what I experienced. Am I out to lunch here?
Hmm.
And sometimes they tell me, oh, well, you're not supposed to do it like that, or that's not the intended purpose. And I realize I didn't test it properly, kind of thing. And I'd say, okay, I try to understand where it is. But there was always a few that would just tell me I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm like, well, I don't really want to run to my keyboard to sacrificial lamb this thing. And whatever it is, but it's, sometimes it's better just not talk about it, and
Yeah.
then you wonder why most of the product reviews are good. You probably don't see the really bad ones because they're just going to make bad blood everywhere.
Yeah.
And, so
and the other one you touched upon was, of course, Jody and Pro Circuit. And, I've thought about that one for 35 years. And even to this day, I've been blessed in the last couple of months. Mitch has called me 2 or 3 times about things, and we've had the most beautiful conversations. And I think Jody had a soft spot for Mitch when Mitch got hurt. And I think Jody living, a couple miles from Mitch.
He was a huge asset for both of them, for each other. I mean, they, because of the testing in motocross action, it really helped Mitch's company grow and succeed. And Mitch's knowledge and the knowledge he shared with Jody to help him be able to test bikes better. Mm-hmm. It was a symbiotic relationship that worked out really, really good.
I think real quick, if FMF happened to be in Corona or Narco, Mitch, I think, lives closer to Jody than the shop. And I think if that was FMF, I think the tables have been turned. I think it was just, it truly is just a relationship, a solid relationship. And it was kind of funny because back, and I'm sorry if I'm cutting you off, but, back in the late 80s and stuff, it was a real problem at High Torque, because FMF didn't feel like they were getting, treated fairly. And they would run with High Torque, almost regrettably, I think. And I think in the last 20 years, that's been different. And High Torque does phenomenal work with FMF, and FMF's done so much
FMF
different.
Was always really big with Tom, and Tom worked there for a while, but I had the same relationship with FMF, and Mitch always thought I didn't like Pro Circuit, but I had a really good working relationship with Bones. In fact, he was one of the one of the suspension tuners that I could just go to, kind of explain a little bit to him. Sometimes I didn't even have to explain it to him. I just say, hey, Bones, can you do this suspension on this bike? And it would come back and be amazing. But, and I talk to Mitch every once in a while now, and, I think he always thought like somehow I was an FMF guy. And in this pipe world, you get branded. You're on one or the other kind of a thing. And but yeah, there was always that assumption in with the Pro Circuit / motocross action thing. But it's just, like I said this earlier in this podcast, we all have friends. You all have your buddies, your bros with, and you kind of gravitate that, whether it's the kind of the gear you wear, the helmet you wear, the boots, it's who your buddies are. And, you can kind of, if you pay attention to it, you can peel into it, but I don't think most people care or even,
I think a lot of industry people cared, and there were great companies throughout the Midwest, the Dynoport pipes or Pro Action, or there are people that have always felt like they didn't get maybe their fair share or fair shake of support or content. Yeah. And and sometimes I think I can see some of that point. I mean, you look at Factory Connection, I think they moved out west, and I think it changed things, significantly for those guys. So I think that.
Also think about the company. What's Decal Works with Ron joined?
Yep. Dear friend.
That was like that company. I remember, what was their gear? They had where they had SoCal.
Yep.
Gear
SoCal. Yeah.
And some things, but they just kept trudging on, and now they're still doing well, and
they're doing phenomenal. And it's it's a shame. They don't do print anymore. They've dropped that from MXA and dirt bike about. I still had them when I was there. I think they snuck out in 23, and same thing with Racer X. But they're doing everything digital, and just hammering people on social media, and it's really working for them. And to me, it's just a drag that when I hear that they're not doing stuff in print. And there was another one, this Wallenberg, living here in Idaho, I see him a ton, and so and so just said no print. They're gonna do the same amount of money with us, but no print. And as I sit here in my shop and I've got every magazine in front of me, I still think magazines have their place. And I think the gentlemen that are, listening, if it's a Roger or Peter or Grant or whoever, I still think
You're a dinosaur.
you might be a dinosaur, but I still think you appreciate the content. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
how do you learn, how do you learn how to set up a bike? How do you learn what, we look at,
When was the last time you saw your kid hold a magazine up?
I know.
They'll hold a phone up just like we hold for the magazine, and now their stuff is just, they don't have to wait a week or a month for it. It's getting ramrodded down their throat. Where there's
no, I get it.
span.
I get it.
And to figure out how to, Rob, I should ask you. You want to come work for Moto Media here and like sell some ads for dirt bike test on this?
I'd sell hundreds. I'd sell hundreds of ads. But I think that
I'll say nice things about anything.
to go back, I think it's in the media world. I would hope, and even Wallenberg says magazines are making a comeback. But there's 4 legs to a chair. And I think magazines is still one of those legs that supports that chair. It doesn't mean doesn't mean you have to do, 70% or 50%, but I still think you should be in front of people, because I think once the magazine goes away, if it does go away, I think it really hurts the product altogether. But
yeah,
that's why I'm here.
I'm blown away that dirt bike and motocross action are the big magazines. Like Racer X is always kind of there, but they don't really test products. But the fact that like, I'm like, how did the most, like, the ones that didn't really, and I think it was to their advantage, you guys didn't adapt to the internet very quick, the whole digital thing. And you probably know as well as anybody, how archaic some of the stuff you guys did, but then in the long run, it worked.
I agree with that. And I was there, Tom Hines, Roland's son, was a big proponent of that, 10, 12, 15 years ago. Look, we got to get our shit together. Daryl Eklund, he's in charge of the advertising these days. That was a big, big move for Daryl. He's super focused on it, and, is doing well with it. Again, that's phenomenal. That's where you get the eyeballs. But to me, and we're getting eyeballs in such different ways, right? But which I could use one more if somebody had one. But the digital, I mean, it is where it's at, and it is the future. It is now. It is where it's at. But I still think there should be a paper product.
Yeah,
and that's.
I think that the paper is sort of that long form, and then now that's sort of your video creation. People they expect your test. Your test now is a video. I mean, I don't remember the last time I rode a stinking motorcycle test.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that's fine.
I could actually have AI do it for me.
No, and I get that, but I think that's great. I mean, I think Josh does a wonderful job of that. Ron does a wonderful job at that, but I think there's still just a part of me that, hey, I'll be the dinosaur. I'm the vintage guy here in the shop, right? So I still appreciate that, but if it just like even setting up a bike. I mean, you talked about earlier, hey, what did MXA say about the bike? And I don't know that I see in a video like, oh, they give you a bike test, but they don't go all of a sudden, oh, you know what, you got to go one up on the counter. You got to get this so the Taco Moto ECU, and you got to have it tuned for this level or whatever. I don't think you see that.
I read enough MXAs to know I needed to go one bigger on the rear sprocket, and then I need to stiffen up the fork springs, and then the clutch is shit. I know enough to know that.
Yeah.
So, but I grew up reading all those things, and like I said, I grew up watching, seeing. I wanted to be the guy on the cover of the magazine. I managed to get my ass there, and figure out how to. Let me
ask you this.
Yeah.
Scoop tire or no scoop tire for these Supercross guys?
I, in all honesty, have not, that I know of, ridden a scoop tire yet, so I don't know how they perform. And knowing how factory tires, when they're race replicas or factory tires work, I can see where they could design a scoop tire that would work at Supercross. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's out of my thing. I if you want to know, how to what's the best bike for rally navigation or whatever, I can answer those kind of questions. I just I know a lot of Husaberg tuning tips, And I gotta, so everybody wants to know what I'm having tonight. I'm having the 3 R's tequila. So
luxury.
Tres Aros. This is not available in the United States. I brought it back up with me last time. So that was I was sipping on this evening. A couple other things. A Cherby's. A Cherby's hooked me up and helped me out because this is what my mud flap looks like after I get back from Baja. So you can see right through here is nice. Tire expands so much it rubs hard on the mud flap and goes away. So I got some Cherby's mud flaps, and we have a cool thing coming from Cherby's. Maybe a little giveaway we might be doing, and then I'm going to talk right now at the end of the show quickly. So last week on the show, Rob, I tore a KTM 500 motor all apart, all by myself in the shop while running this show live, and I pulled it apart. It was a 200 hours on a Wiseco piston that I wanted to test. I test things a lot. And I'd run stock pistons and so the Vertex ones and different pistons in the thing. So I wanted to test a Wiseco because they're really pushing some of their stuff. So they gave me a piston. I put 200 hours on the thing and then pulled it apart and it looked beautiful after 200 hours. I was pretty stoked. And I pulled it apart and everything looked great. But then I had my tequila glasses on and I might have had a beer while I was doing it because that's what you do in the shop. When I got done, I looked closely and I pulled the cylinder head off and I showed you the cylinder head looked really good. And I'm going to show you the spark plug that came out of here. And if you can see this and if you're watching, you're looking at a spark plug, you're going to notice that I'm spinning it right now. You notice there's something missing off that spark plug? The grounding electrode.
Yeah.
Gone. And there was one small looking like kind of scar, not scar. It wasn't a scar. You could just see where something had gone up and down in the cylinder, but there was no other marks at all. And the top of the piston, which I have right here also, top of the piston has no peck marks or anything in it. So that thing probably fell off, bounced around once or twice, and went right out the exhaust valve. And so no damage from that. But I've never seen the grounding tip come off on a spark plug before on a 4-stroke. This is a problem on like really highly modified like small bore 2-stroke because of the vibrations. But it was gone. Amazing that bike was still running. I have no idea how long that had happened, but the bike was still starting pretty good and running pretty good. Although when it was really cold, it didn't start that good. I think that's a problem. So bike's back together. It starts way better than it used to. New spark plug, by the way, $35.
Yeah,
$35 for a spark plug these days.
Hey, what oil do you run?
The oil I have in the shop. By the way, you can sponsor me with oil. But so the last probably 6 oil changes, it's been Motul, just because a lot of Motul kind of came through the facility. And then I've run I run Dello. I don't run I run Dello because of some tests I saw. And so I've been running the Dello 1540 a lot, but I don't change it all that often. I mean, it went the whole Baja Peninsula without having the oil changed. 2,300 kilometers. I just added oil, and I added a total of 1 quart. So it was almost like it was getting refreshed every day because it goes through 2 tanks of gas. But anyway, so I'm holding up this piston, which looks beautiful. But then I wanted to look at the serial numbers and stuff on it, and so I pulled out. My eyes aren't that good. Probably they're a little bit better than yours, Rob. I don't wear those things that you're wearing, hardly ever, but I put some on so I could look closely at the right here. It is right here. There's actually here, and you're not going to see it in the camera, but I'm pointing to the serial numbers, and it shows the part number and serial number and some stuff. I couldn't read it even and I looked at the glasses, and there was a small amount of detonation on this side of the piston. No marks up on the cylinder head, but just trying to come clean. But I mean, you look at this 200-hour piston, it still has the indentations and stuff like that. There's not a lot of rocking going on. You can see up around here, everything looks super good. But so pretty happy. Never got too hot. The pin was when I took this motor all apart, the pin was not looking too good. There was a coating on that and some other things. But anyways, that's kind of the update in the KTM 500. I got it started again. I got my spark plug yesterday, so I put the spark plug in and got it started up. It started and idled, sound great. Put a new Recluse clutch plates in it, some clutch dampers, and I'm going to tear the front end off the bike, and it'll be probably riding by the end of the week. So
what year is that? What year is that bike?
That is a 2020 KTM 500 EXC that it has over 600 hours on it. It's got a lot of. It's my rally training / Baja bike. Gets used a bit. So tractor oil. Pete says I should run Swepco. That was Bruce Ogilvy's favorite oil.
Well, there's a gentleman down in Temecula who doesn't work for the group anymore, but he built factory motors, and and he told my boy to run Shell Rotella 5W30 and change it every 5 hours, and you'll get 300 hours out of a motor.
530 or 1530?
530.
530. Okay. Yep.
Shell Rotella, super affordable.
Yeah, the Rotella diesel oil. And like I said, I run the 1540. It's the same as it's Delvac, the Rotella. It's just a good, consistent oil. In fact, the thing is that it works good with the clutch as well. Like I've run some oils that are really good for your motor, but they don't work good on the clutch. So sorry for the lack of tech talk, but it was really awesome talking to Robb Mesecher from High Torque. Big competitor to the Enduros. We used to try to beat each other at tiebreakers all the time back in the day.
It didn't matter, if I beat you or you beat me, but it was just most important that we beat Polanski. Let's just say that.
Well, we never did actually. We never could beat Grant because even if the results sheet, like if our names are on top of him, I guarantee you that he would tell us exactly why his name should have been on top, and then something did something wrong.
Well, I will say this. I mean, I do love the guy.
It's called Polanskiing the results.
Yeah, no, I did. I talked to DeCoster about that, but that guy has more results where he did better than I did for sure. But he can pull out anything from any year where he's like 5 spots ahead of me in every result. I don't know how he does it, because I've got results here that show different, but that guy's something else. But
he's still riding all the time. I get pissed off him because he talks too much about locations. I'm big about keep your good location secret, and good guy.
No, he's doing well. He's doing super well.
Good to see Steve Webb in the thing. Fun bench racing. Steve, I got to get you on the show too. We can talk carbs.
He's done so much for me over the decades. That guy's amazing. And just when we go back to him for all the Husky tuning, to Steve Webb and Dave McGacken. Dave's got a little thing called motohelp.com, has been great. But
right.
And it's kind of funny. I was thinking about that back today, like how, and the Husky thing started, Steve Webb helped me get a Husky support rider, get a bike from Husqvarna in 82, the 250XC I was talking about. And I'm sure it was nothing to do with, I could ride okay, but I think Steve, was probably a shop bike that he got to me or whatever. But he played a big role in helping me, get up those steps, get better and better in the early 80s. And that was super cool.
Yeah. Well, there were a couple comments in there that said that you would dive underneath your bike when you were crashing because you didn't want to scratch it. I really remember your Suzuki years. Like your Suzukis were always super sano and clean. And I was kind of I was this poor kid that was just scrapping everything together. So my stuff didn't look that good and stuff. I just rode the shit because I had to ride my practice bike as my race bike. That's all I had.
So here's one question I have for you. And I think we're probably trying to button her up here. What's one thing you would have done different looking back, racing wise or career wise?
I would have gone to the doctor in Morocco and got the Imodium pill so I wouldn't have shit my life out of me in the first Dakar I did, because I think that trajectory would have been a lot of different stuff would happen. That's the only, I think back, that was one of the dumbest things. I was scared of doctors, but it makes for good stories. I don't know. I think everything kind of happens for a reason. I'm not a big believer in luck. I believe luck is a combination of hard work and dedication and having some skill at things. But I look back and I think I'm blessed to have got to the point where I still ride motorcycles for a living, Rob.
Yeah.
This is if if I didn't ride motorcycles, I wouldn't have half the stuff to talk to about all the people I know that still tell me cool things about bikes and how to make them better and stuff. I kind of want to turn the question back on you.
Ooh, this will be a tough one, and probably a tough one to say, but I probably regret staying at one job as long as I did. I probably would have liked, if I were to do it over again, I probably would have taken, you know, 10, 12 years at a company and probably moved around a little bit. But I liked comfort. We had the most fun of, I think, any group, any publishing group. Certainly, we had a dynamite time. But part of me wishes I would have moved around just a little bit. Not even at different publishing companies, maybe working for a manufacturer, or just doing something probably different, maybe. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
I it's just something that's crossed my mind over the last 3 or 4 years, that I either going to do a long run at one spot, or you've seen some people navigate. A John Eric Burleson, for instance, has done 2 or 3 different things, been super successful. There's people that have done a few things that I think have been good for them, good for their career.
Yeah. And what are you doing now?
I own, of all things, a rain gutter business in Idaho that I bought. An existing company. It was started in 1979, and it's that. It's a little bit of construction, siding. Water damage is a big thing up here, and it's something I really enjoy. It's am I semi-retired? No, but yes. I mean, I start at 8. I'm done by 1. We make some money.
Yeah. Got the kid working full time?
No, the one does with me a bunch, and the other one's helping out right now. He runs a ski hill. Mitchell does, the one you see that rides dirt bikes, and he's he's helping out a little bit right now. And there's some things happening that it's actually really enjoyable. And I don't know that I could ever be retired, because I think I'd go batshit crazy. I bought a vapor blaster and some other stuff in here so I can restore some bikes.
A lot of Huskys.
Yeah, I can restore Huskys in the winter, and I'm chasing the golf ball around with Jeff Hicks a bunch, old motocrosser, and
okay, yeah,
and just having a good time. It's bitching up here, and
did you buy anything at Meekum?
You think my wife's going to hear this? I don't think she will.
Probably not.
So I was driving down, and there was a 1984 250 Husky that was going for like $800, and I called a gentleman named, his name's Bill Masho in Santa Barbara, does a bunch of vintage stuff, and he buys things from there all the time. I called him, and I was like in Jackpot, Nevada, just across the border, about 3 hours from here. And I go, hey, I'm going to lose reception for like 4 or 5 hours. I go, if that bike is still pretty low, if it's like $1,700, grab it. And I get to like Pahrump, or not Pahrump. Yeah. I get like Paharangat, or whatever it's called. And he calls me up and goes, hey, I got you that bike. Yeah. He goes, I got you that bike for $800. So I did buy one there, but I was only, the reason why I was going there, and it's a little mild plug, and I'm sure for the 14 people that are listening, I'm selling Casey Folks's collection of Husqvarnas. He had 36 beautifully restored John Lefevre Husqvarnas, and we're down into the teens now, so we still have a bunch of great bikes left, but they're 70 to 74 Huskies, and kind of the Steve McQueen era.
Yeah.
So that's been fun, and that's why I go down there a bunch, and that's I think ran into you there. You didn't buy anything there, did you?
No. I was looking at Makos. I have a Mako thing, but I've got to get over my Husaberg thing. I'm seeing somebody about this as we speak. My wife was kind of surprised that she got a new Husaberg about 2 months ago.
Really?
It was supposed to be a trade, because I'm not allowed to buy anything new. I might have bought a Bobcat today, a tractor. But we're in a down phasing part of the economy for me, I guess. But I think I have to get rid of one. But it was a trade deal, and Preston Campbell was going to pick the bike up when he was driving down from Idaho, and somehow the trade thing fell apart. So I just wired the guy money and ended up with another Husaberg. So
anyways, it was a trade. It was a trade. It was money for a bike. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but the bike count went up.
Yeah.
And so that's not the thing. But if you if you want to get a hold of Rob for a Husky, reach out to Jimmy at dirtbiketest.com and I'll put you guys in touch. It was super awesome talking with Rob. I one of these days we'll do it. We'll dive deeper into the editorial world.
There's a lot of stuff there.
When I get to Monkey Butt 2, I'm not like as published as this guy I know, this Jerry Bernardo guy. By the way, this is his new book. You can buy it on Amazon right now. It's called Written in Scars. It's a thin little book. It's got a lot of short little poems in it, and you should buy it and then write a review before you read any of them, because you might go completely insane. I will not read one of these before I go to bed tonight, just so you know. But do buy Jerry's book on Amazon. They're interesting. You could also get Coffee Brewed with a Graveyard Mist. I have a segment on the show. Maybe you could sell it for me because it hasn't been going that well, Rob. But it's the segment where you pay me to not read a poem out of Jerry's book.
Wow,
so
that would be a tough sell.
I think people might be into it. If you pay me, then I won't read a poem. But otherwise, because I have a way to do it. I open the book up and then I grab this microphone right here,
and we're gonna flickers of misery. This is how we end the show sometimes. So if you're ready, you can. Somebody wants a blue Husky 175, by the way.
Got one.
Peter Postel. So like a wizard, I spend my days floating over dips and valleys where head hangs low. With one smooth swing of the wand, I'll suck the sadness away. No black sheets cloaking sunflowers or throwing shade. When wedding rice sparkles in the air, glints of misery catch my eye. Like Houdini's last breath, I will make them vanish.
Okay, so you can see why somebody would want to sponsor me not reading those. But the problem is I read those. Well, my eyes were kind of going a little crazy. I was having to adjust the thing. Some of them are good. He has this one. It was hand printed for me that he gave me, and it was like you had to like read it 5 or 6 times to think about, and then you understand why Jerry is Jerry. So good times.
And he's in Vegas.
Somebody
right?
wants me to call a priest.
He's in Vegas, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Allegedly.
Oh boy.
Witness protection. So right on, Rob.
Okay.
I am going to hang up on you, and thanks for coming on, and we'll see you. I'll do the close out of the show here.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me. Thank you for allowing me.
Cheers.
And, yeah. Best to all of you guys.
Good times. See
Okay.
ya.
Cheers. Bye.
That was Robb Mesecher, everybody. He is a longtime desert enduro rider, really long time ad salesman at High Torque. I used to have to go to battle with their ad department. I didn't. My ad department probably tried to, but they were formidable adversaries in the editorial world. They're the ones that survived. Still can't believe it to this day, but I probably killed Dirt Rider. Other than that, thanks to all our sponsors. Thanks to Yamaha. Thanks to Taco Moto, where we did not do Roostereno this show. Bulletproof Designs. Chirby's is going to come on here pretty soon. They got a kind of a cool thing we're going to do. Scott goggles, still wearing those. And my climb gear, because it's getting hot outside, so I'm going to start wearing the XC Pro, the new XC Pro, if you're interested. Thanks everybody for joining in, all 33 million of you. We've received 100 messages tonight, so that gives us a star. We got a little trophy right now. I have no idea who's coming on the show next weekend, or if I'm going to do a show next week or weekend. This is my Friday night, by the way, the way my weeks are organized. And you have 2 more days to sign up for Nora's Baja. And I'm going to tell you that I'm very proud of the course that I put together. I would recommend riding it one last time, because I don't think we're going to have motorcycle courses like this in the future, unless we get 40 entries, and I know that's not going to happen. So awesome, everybody. Great to see you. And now I got to figure out how to turn off the show. And I do apologize because Jerry Bernardo has personally told me that I do not know how to read poetry. So with that, we will see you out on the trail. Cheers, everybody. Okay, hard part of turn this show off. If you liked what you saw in this video, come check us out over at dirtbiketest.com on the webs. We have bike tests, product tests, a lot of fresh dirt, and you can even support us by clicking through our links. Hopefully, we'll see you out in the trail.